read articles about multi-speciality hospitals, and every investor, both Indian and foreign, is there. I think the same thing is happening on the senior care side. Over the next 15 years, 80% of our members think this would be a great place to invest. Very similar to if you looked at 5 years ago, single speciality hospitals. There's an unbundling of the hospital space. And single specialties, found their place in the sun. I think the same thing is happening. When an industry actually really grows is, I think, the interest from financial investors. You must have read articles about, multi-speciality hospitals, and every investor, both Indian and foreign, is there. I think the same thing is happening on the senior care side. Over the next 15 years, 80% of our members think, this would be a great place to invest. Very similar to, if you looked at 5 years ago, single speciality hospitals. There's an unbundling of the hospital space. And single specialties, found their place in the sun. I think the same thing is happening on the senior care component. I think the whole idea of, what constitutes that, assisted living, home care, mental engagement, nursing, specialized, telehealth, these would be big growth areas. We also asked them, what are the biggest challenges? Because, as Dr. Paul is from NITI, the whole idea is you need to catalyze growth of the industry. And it's very nice to be proactive and say. And some of the biggest challenge, no points for guessing, is again trained staff. People don't know. Till about 15 years ago, there was no geriatric department also in most hospitals. So the idea of trained staff coming, the whole component of accessibility, because we're just not talking about the 2%, affordability, how would that come? Integration with technology. Technology has become one of the most important components. And again at that conference, Dr. Paul, they said, one of the biggest things for longevity is your ever-time coach. Today you only go to a doctor once in 6 months and he tells you and alters your medication. But AI will be a longevity coach for you in real time, which happens. I think one of the biggest thing where there was some apprehension is what is the current regulatory environment. I think every industry needs basically a clarity on what the regulations are, because investment comes in when you have a stable environment. And I think we should not look at senior care as an industry. As Rajat said, we should look at it as an ecosystem. The minute we move from industry to ecosystem, because I think the clinical component would only be 20%. 80% is the whole well-being of this. And one of the latest WHO reports also talks about the fact that you need to have relationships as you go ahead. So it says from loneliness to social connect. So there are not only financial and clinical parameters, but there are these other parameters which would be very important to build a great ecosystem. The other component it found out, and very truly, is a lot of demand would be beyond the tier 1 cities, it will be in the tier 2, tier 3 cities. A lot of, and I think in India we are very independent. We do want to live independently. We don't want to be a burden. So I think the component of how you can still live independently, but also be related to the nuclear family you are part of. So I think as we move ahead, and once I visited Japan, and people said, forget the tsunami, it's the silver tsunami which is our biggest. Because in Japan, more adult diapers sell than children's diapers, which is an indication of where the demographic share has gone. So I think, in a way, I think we're moving ahead. And Dr. Paul, we call it a silver economy, but I think silver economy, in a way, says there's dependence on someone. I think we're now trying to say, let this be an evergreen longevity economy, which really fuels growth, increases productivity till the day you die, and creates intergenerational wealth creation.
What's driving is the demographic transformation, as Mr. Mehta has touched upon it. It's the rising demand for quality lifestyle-oriented developments for senior living, as well as the social shift. To give you perspective, demographic shift As of today, we have almost 163 million population in India, above 60. And fast forward to 2030, we'll be looking at about 191 million population in the senior category. From a demand assessment, financially independent seniors in metros are estimated to be around 1.7 million units, which is today, and that number will stand at 2.3 million units by 2030. And from a supply perspective, we have only 1.4% penetration. So to be precise, only 22,195 units are available in the senior housing category. And by 2030, we expect that gap to go up to about 28,000. So penetration by 1.4%. And to compare that to mature markets like US, it's about 7% penetration. And market like New Zealand is about 14 to 15%. Our projection from last year, we were at about 7 billion, and just 1 year, the market valuation for this senior living sector is about $8 billion. The valuation is arrived by aggregating the current supply as well as the future supply and basis the demand assessment for by 2030. What are the key drivers? Mr. Rana touched upon this increased longevity, and with increased longevity comes chronic diseases and hence specialized need for assisted care and assisted living. From other demand driver is the formation of nucleus families and more migrant population of children working in international countries where parents need more assisted care. And lastly, the economic independence of seniors. Seniors want to be independent, don't want to be burdened on their children. That's again is creating the demand to start with on senior living sector. But with drivers are also challenges. So key challenges which we face in the sector is the high valuations on land and construction cost. Rightly pointed out, Mr. Rana, is the lack of skilled caregivers is a big challenge. And with Skill India, I think we should be focusing on creating more caregivers as the demand is only going to increase further. And lastly, absence of a unified national policy around senior living sector. But what is the silver lining is between last year's event and this year's event, Maharashtra government actually came out with the housing policy for 2025, where they actually categorized senior living as a new building category and did take suggestion objections on the policy from the ASTI partners and members. I am very proud to say that the government is now recognized as a separate category, giving financial incentives, developer incentives, as well as the biggest benefit is stamp duty in Maharashtra is 6% for any buy apartment. For senior living unit, it's only 1,000 rupees flat, plus GST spent at 1%. So the hope is that other governments will now emulate this Maharashtra housing policy and try to create the sector the right amount of boost and the policy regulatory framework to give it.